And welcome into a live edition of the North Star Takes podcast, post-game edition of the Minnesota Vikings crushing defeat against the Cincinnati Bengals today. Just an awful week one showing for this Vikings team. I don't think any of us were expecting them to lose this game. I know we had Krenzy and Jackson on the pod a few days ago, and they basically said they expected it to be close. Krenzy said he wouldn't be surprised if they lost, so he kind of called it there. Overall, I guess the main takeaway, this team is extremely undisciplined. The amount of penalties that were in this game were just absolutely ridiculous. I guess that's really the main place to start. I mean, the offense didn't show up at all in the first half, which was extremely disappointing to see, but we had also kind of talked about that before, how they didn't have a good preseason whatsoever. They had no continuity, no chemistry whatsoever. I mean, they looked like a complete mess. The entire offensive line played like garbage today. I guess what's your main takeaway from this game? I mean, clearly the way I look at it, this team is not ready to compete for anything. I know it's just week one, but this team doesn't look like it's even close to ready to compete against Arizona next week, who blew out Tennessee today, and Tennessee's a good team. So what's your main takeaway from this game, Alberto?
Boy, there are so many different things that happened today that we'll have to dive into, but I think you kind of hit on the big things that just overall from a team standpoint, we just don't seem like we're ready to really be a serious contender in this NFC. And like, this is a game we honestly, in my opinion, we had to win because I think it's one of the easier ones on our schedule when you look ahead. As far as like what we know about these teams we're going to play this year, obviously things change, and there are probably some games in there where we think we're playing a good team, but then circumstances change where maybe they incur injuries or something, and then it becomes more of a winnable game. But for now, this is unacceptable, losing a game to Cincinnati that honestly we should have won, like right out the bat, get started 1-0, and really take a step up in this division considering how everybody else did. So I think, my biggest takeaway, though, is probably just coming out not ready to play, like you mentioned, especially with the penalties. Like, that was just a killer, especially when you come out on your first offensive drive and right away, bam, you have 4 flags on one drive. 4 flags. Yeah. You just can't have that. So I think that's just a horrible start to the season, and hopefully not a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I think the penalties were just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, all these false starts, and the announcers kept talking about the crowd noise, and I'm sitting there going, what crowd noise? The stadium was like 3/4 full. Yeah. It was just, and then all these holding calls, which, I mean, they were holding, but like nothing on the Bengals, really. Like, the Bengals weren't doing anything wrong. Like, I find that hard to believe.
I know, yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to make this about the refs, because the refs are not why we lost this game, although there was some controversial calls with the Dalvin Cook fumble at the end of overtime, the Justin Jefferson, where we lost a timeout on a challenge. So, the refs definitely weren't great today either, but not the reason we lost. Just completely undisciplined approach by the offensive line, specifically in the first half. I didn't think Kirk looked great in the first half either. I know that'll probably rub some people the wrong way as well. Mm-hmm. But he did not come out looking good right off the bat. He was missing Jefferson specifically quite a bit, throwing behind him. Wasn't a great day for Dalvin Cook either, but I think the Bengals just kind of game planned, hey, we're just going to prepare to stop Dalvin Cook and make Kirk Cousins beat us. And I think that's the way every team should do it, honestly. If you're trying to beat the Vikings, stop Dalvin Cook first and foremost.
Absolutely, because once you stop Dalvin, then you basically take away the best part of Kirk's game in the play action. Because if you don't really feel the run game from us is a threat, then the play action won't be either, because you're not selling out for the run anymore. So then Kirk's play immediately goes down when he's not playing out of play action a lot. So then that's just a domino effect. And honestly, Kirk's good games usually coincide with Dalvin good games too, or at least solid performances where, like I said, the run game is just there. So I think that's might be the recipe for success towards stopping our offense, at least for now. But it's just Kirk. It constantly comes back to Kirk because, quarterback's most important position in sports. Yep. And even though it's always what's the word I'm looking for? Polarizing. Yes, polarizing.
Yes, very polarizing.
Because either you stand on the side of like, Kirk, he had a good game today. He's not really why we lost, because he went 36 of 49 for 350 yards and a couple touchdowns. But it's like, well, did he do anything? Like, did he win us the game? No, he didn't. And it just depends how you really look at it. Because, like, on the one hand, are you looking at the quarterback to, like, not be a reason we lost, or do you want to be a reason we won? Me personally, if we're going to give him that large of a percentage of the salary cap that we are, I feel like he's got to go out there and take the game by the horns and just win it, especially against a team that, honestly, Like, you saw Zach Taylor's record before the game. Like, his first 2 seasons, he's won 6 games over 2 years, and we come out and lose week 1 to them. So that just can't happen, especially when you have a quarterback that should be able to lead this team at least to a victory like this. Even despite being on the road, he's got to be able to take command of the game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, like you said, we're paying him, I think it's like $35 million this year we're paying him to the cap. And I know it's not about the money, but when you're paying a guy that much, he's in his 30s, he's a veteran quarterback, he's been around, and it just never is any different with him. It's been the same thing the last 4 seasons of Vikings football. And quite frankly, I'm sick of it. I mean, he's good, but he's not good enough. And I think a lot of people might disagree with that. I don't care. The stats don't mean anything. Look at the stats today. He threw the ball 49 times. He had 351 yards. It's empty stats. It means absolutely nothing. And I'm sick of that. I mean, these stats look great when you're trailing and you have to throw the ball to come back. But when it came down to it, that last drive of overtime, what were we doing? We were running the ball. And I love Dalvin Cook as much as, any other fan does. He's a fantastic player. He's an all-pro running back. He cannot be the focal point of this offense. He is a running back, and he's a great player. He's probably the most talented player on our offense, but he cannot be the focal point. The quarterback needs to be the focal point. And if you don't trust your quarterback, or if he's not good enough to be the focal point, and you can't center your offense around him, then that's an issue, especially when you're paying him that much money.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't recall any championship teams that really weren't about these quarterbacks, really, because honestly, you got to go way back, honestly, to find teams that really could center the offense around the run game and succeed and really get to where we want to go as far as the Super Bowl championship. So I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head that we need a quarterback that's going to go out there and basically the center of the offense that we run through, because Kirk, we can only supplement him so much. And I just think that he's just got to take it to another level, really. I know maybe that's a lot to ask when he throws for 350 yards today, but at the same time, it's like, how is he coming across those stats, really, when you watch the game? As far as like Jackson always mentions when we watch these games, the eye test, the famous eye test. But it visually, it just depends what glasses you're putting on watching these performances. So see, we got a comment here. We got the Packers getting blown out today. Yes.
That is the one positive. It's always great to see the Packers lose, but that's the issue I have with today is, like, we played the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that's probably going to finish with 5 or 6 wins at the most, I would guess. They play in a tough division. Pittsburgh, who a lot of people were expecting to fall off this year, beat the Bills today. So Pittsburgh's going to be a strong contender in that division once again, it's looking like. Packers got blown out, and that's great, and Aaron Rodgers looked like crap. It doesn't matter, though, because we lost to the Bengals, and we play the Cardinals next week, who destroyed the Titans today. So I'm guessing we're probably going to get spanked by the Cardinals. That would be my guess. Next week, we go home finally. We play Seattle, who we haven't played at home in forever. I don't know. We haven't beaten Seattle under the Zimmer-Kirk era, so I don't expect it to happen. I don't think Zimmer's ever beaten Seattle. So I don't expect it to happen this year when the team looks like this. Jackson also left a comment. He says it's time to tank. And I mean, it is week 1, but when you look at the schedule coming up here, assuming that, Arizona's going to take care of us, I would think. I'm guessing we're going to start off 0-3, and then you play the Browns, who's not going to be an easy game. They just took the Chiefs to the wire, barely losing, and old friend Mike Hughes got the game-sealing interception. So it's like we could realistically start off 0-4, and then at that point, you're talking about Zim getting fired and a whole offseason full of questions. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, everything you just said sounds like it's a real possibility. I think people got to prepare for it, but at the same time, I think it's also a thing where you got to take a step back. It's just one game. Kind of see how they come out next week. If it's kind of more of the same, then I think we start to worry a little bit more, and especially if we come out flat in the home opener here in a couple weeks against Seattle, a team, like you said, that Zimmer's never beaten here in Minnesota, then it's time to start panicking, because not a lot of teams make the playoffs when they start 0-2, 0-3. Like, the percentages are way down when you look at it historically. Obviously, things are a little bit different now because of the expanded playoff field as of last year with 7 teams making the playoffs now. But at the same time, do we really want to be one of those teams yet again to just claw into the playoffs just so you can play some really good team on their home turf and then it'll be a long shot of winning that game, like getting out of the first round, let alone making a Super Bowl run. So I think you guys kind of make a point that at some point we'll have to seriously think about tanking to just get ready for the future. But at the same time, I think it's also only a game. We got to see how we come out next week in Arizona.
Yeah, and the team is never just going to straightforward, outwardly tank. They're not going to lose games on purpose, but it's going to come to the point where if you're 0-4, I mean, they'll probably start off – if they go 0-4, they're going to beat the Lions week 5. They'll probably beat the Panthers after that. So they'll win a couple games here before the bye, but you're going to the bye and you're – just like last season, we were 1-5, I think, going into the bye. This year we could be 2-4. I don't know. You can't do what you did last year and try to make a sprint at the end of the season just to come up just short again, because going 9-8 this season is not going to do you any good, because you didn't you're most likely not making the playoffs. You're taking yourself out of a position to draft a good player, specifically a quarterback. I know we picked Kellen Mond, but I'm not convinced he's going to be the guy. And if you're moving on from Kirk, you need to find someone that's going to be the guy right away. So I don't know. I think it's only week 1, but it is something to start thinking about, because if this Kirk Cousins led team can't even beat the Cincinnati Bengals, granted it's a road game, it's week 1, things are weird. I have a tough time seeing them beating almost anybody right now, except for maybe the Lions.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you there. Like I keep saying, Cincinnati probably looked like one of the easiest games on our schedule, like on the onset. I'm still coming into this weekend, but I also think that their offense is getting better. Like I think Burrow is going to be a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
And I think they do have some good receivers there, and Mixon's a solid back. But at the same time, like I think their defense, we should have been able to expose them more than we did. I feel like we really had to struggle to move the ball and score points today, and I think that's very concerning, because I don't think their defense is really that good. I think they have a very good revamped front four, because they brought in Trey Hendrickson, for instance, and he's a very good end. And just to note that the Vikings did try and pursue him in the offseason, but came up short. So that's too bad. But so he'd been a nice player. But beyond that, I don't know. I'm just not that high on their defense, and we really were struggling to move the ball and just make something happen today, I guess, because we didn't really stretch the field that much. I saw Kirk's average air yards today was not that good, so I'm not too keen on this offense right now, or just too high, I should say. So let's just see what happens next week in Arizona. See if we have any answers for Chandler Jones that Tennessee didn't have today.
Yeah, he had 5 sacks today, which worries me a lot with him going against possibly Rashad Hill next week. But Sage points out the Lions put up 33 points today, and yeah, they did. I mean, against a good 49ers defense at that, which surprised me. So maybe the Lions won't be necessarily as much of a pushover as one might think as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
I know, right? I can't believe they hung in that game. I thought it was over from the point it got to like 41-17 or something. I thought San Fran put them in the dirt and it was just over. But then they were resilient. You know, Dan Campbell's bunch, he came back into it, and they had a chance at the end even, but just came up a little short. But yeah, I'm impressed. I kind of figured that their offense would be a train wreck. I thought Jared Goff getting taken out of the McVay system would just face like a steep decline, and people really realize who Jared Goff really is. But I got to give him credit for just hanging around against what I think will be a good San Fran team. But hey, that defense still needs work, obviously, because they gave up 41. But,
right.
I don't know. I still think this Lions team is probably winning 3 games this year, maybe.
I think they're definitely the worst team in the NFC North, at least on paper, talent-wise.
Could they be the worst in the NFC?
They honestly could be. I mean, Sage also brings up Spencer Rattler. That would be amazing, but the Vikings would have to be so bad to get him. I mean, you'd have to win 2 games maybe at the most, and I don't know. This team's got too much talent. I'm sure the offense will figure it out eventually, but it's going to be too late. I think this could be a mirror image of last season, honestly, which is that's the exact spot you don't want to be. You do not want to be in the middle when you're in the NFL. You either want to be picking at the top of the draft, getting solid prospects in here, or you want to be a perennial playoff team that's competing for a Super Bowl. And right now the Vikings are neither. They haven't had a legit playoff run since 2017. And they haven't picked in the top 10 since when? 2012?
It would have been 14 because we got Barr.
That's 9. Right. Barr was 9. Yeah. So that's how long ago they picked in the top 10. They could have last year if they would have just lost a couple games at the end of the season that were basically meaningless. Could have drafted Justin Fields. who's now on the Bears.
Oh, and that could come back to haunt big time.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think Spielman's made a big mess of this whole thing. What do you think?
I'm still pretty high on Rick. I still think he's assembled a good roster. Obviously, our depth issues, I think, are coming to the forefront here after a very bad preseason. And honestly, when guys have been out these last couple of years, or even guys that are supposed to be starters, for instance, on this interior on the offensive line, it's looking bad. It's looking rough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of goes back to the who's bringing in these guys in the first place. Or otherwise you have to evaluate your coaching. Are they doing a good enough job to basically develop these guys? And clearly something's wrong here. So I think it's fair to critique Rick a little bit, especially with all these first-round misses lately besides Justin Jefferson. So
yeah,
I think that's also something to point out. I think everybody's kind of a little bit to blame at this point right now, though. But again, it's just one game. I'm trying to keep a level head, but at the same time, it's like this could be a sign of things to come, and there's no turning back. But I think what we want to avoid is, like you keep describing, the mediocre season where we end up 8-9, 9-8 or something. Like that is just painful, because then it's just a revolving door of the same old crap where you have these times where you face adversity. Well, first you start bad like this, like Kirk does, and then eventually you turn around when all the pressure's basically being taken off. And then when it really counts, if it does again, then we just go back downhill like we did last year. Like you said, I just want to avoid that repeat of last season. But I'm really in fear of that happening because, at some point we'll string together some wins, but it's just hopefully it's not too little too late either.
Yeah. Sage has another question here. Zimmer on the hot seat if we miss the playoffs. And I think he's gone if we miss the playoffs. I think he's already on the hot seat. I think he's gone if we miss the playoffs. You can't have this much talent on a roster. And while it's top heavy and the depth is not great, and we'll get into that probably a little more here as well, you can't miss the playoffs when you have a quarterback that's making $35 million. You have a running back who's on his second contract making good money. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are both very good wide receivers. You have a much improved defense. We saw some good things on the defensive line today. I thought Patrick Peterson played good today. I didn't hear his name really at all, so that was encouraging. Bashad Breeland did not, however, so that's concerning as well. But yeah, I think if you miss the playoffs with this group, it's time to move on. You probably get rid of Zimmer, you get rid of Kirk. You kind of start all over again is kind of what I'm thinking. You can still keep your main guys because they're under contract, but you got to find that next QB and quickly. And I think it's worth it to hang on to Mond. With your first round pick, assuming you're picking top 15 or so, hopefully again, just pick that next quarterback and have them battle it out in camp. If Kellen Mond is better, let Mond start. And at least you're taking shots at the quarterback position, which is what this team hasn't done since Teddy Bridgewater. You can't be afraid to do that, especially Cousins is in his 30s. Like they should have been planning for this 2 years ago, before his contract expired the first time. So yeah, I think he's gone if we miss the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Sage brings up a great point here that he's definitely on the hot seat. And I think I agree with you too, that I think he's probably gone if we miss the playoffs here. I think there'd have to be a lot of weird circumstances if we were to miss the playoffs and Zimmer still keep his job. And that's part of the reason why I actually think Rick is safe, just because I think it's pretty hard to, in one fell swoop, just all of a sudden get rid of your quarterback, get rid of your head coach and your GM all at once. And because I think when you do that, I think you're probably at the point where, or if you do that in one off season, I think you're probably at a point where you're a disaster of a team. And I don't think we're going to have like a disastrous enough season where we're like, oh man, we're getting rid of all three of these guys at once. So that's why I think Rick is probably the safest, just because I think more of our problems feel like, at least maybe internally they feel differently. But I think to me anyways, it feels like more of the problems lie on our quarterback and our head coach here than the GM assembling this roster. Because personally, I still like our team, especially the starters on paper, but at the same time, I think everybody's got to take a little bit of the blame here. So yeah, I'd say Zimmer's definitely on the hot seat. And like you said, I have a hard time seeing him not getting fired if we miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of ready for it, honestly. I think we talked about before how this game was going to be very important for how this season was going to play out. And losing a game like this right off the bat, just a killer, man. I mean, and the thing with Spielman is, while I agree with you that he's probably safe, it's like he's really, really missed out these last few years. I mean, he's got some huge hits, like go back to 2015, and you had Eric Kendricks in the 2nd round, Danielle Hunter in the 3rd round, Stephon Diggs in the 5th round. And
that was
then
a huge draft. Like, you couldn't draw it up any better than that.
Yeah, and then you got Dalvin Cook was a 2nd-round pick, who probably should have been a 1st-round pick, but he was a good 2nd-round pick. Justin Jefferson, a home run of a pick at wide receiver last year. But then
Brian O'Neill in the 2nd round too.
Yeah, Brian O'Neill, another good one. But most of the 1st-round picks have not been great. Trey Waynes never got a 2nd contract with us. Laquan Treadwell, complete bust. Absolutely horrible.
Worst of the bunch.
Absolutely. Never looked like he belonged on an NFL field. Now you got Mike Hughes, didn't get a 2nd contract with us, got the game-sealing interception today for the Kansas City Chiefs because, of course, he did. Garrett Bradbury. I was preaching patience with Garrett Bradbury. I think my patience has run out with him. I think he looks the same. He's got better guard play around him, it appears. And he looks the same that he's looked the last couple of years. He just gets pushed back into the quarterback. And yes, Kirk hangs onto the ball a little too long, but Bradbury's got no anchor, man. He's too small to play center in the NFL. And it's becoming obvious that teams are game planning to just go straight at him. And I just think, I don't know. I think they're going to have to move on from Garrett Bradbury too. I'm guessing I could see him being the center next year too, just because he's going to be under contract, but there's no way they'll pick up that 5th-year option for him. And then this year you picked Darrisaw in the 1st round. He's not going to be ready to play for weeks yet. I mean, he was inactive today. He's barely practiced since his 2nd groin surgery. It's like, man, if they could have just moved up and picked Justin Fields at 11, or maybe even selected Mac Jones at 15, which we didn't want Mac Jones, because honestly, if the line's going to be bad, you want a quarterback that can move. I mean, it's as simple as that. So I don't know, man. I'm just kind of nervous because this year's draft class isn't going to be able to help us whatsoever unless like Amir Smith-Marset can make some sort of an impact. So I guess I'm slowly losing confidence in Spielman. I think he's good at finagling the draft in terms of moving around, trading back, trading up, stuff like that. But in terms of like the end result, it's like we haven't had a home run draft in quite a while.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's been a minute. I think that's his hallmark that he's got hanging over the mantle. His definitely the 2015 draft class, and I think it just scares me what other options are out there as far as who we'd really bring in instead of Spielman. I think the unknown is kind of scary because I think Rick is a good GM. It's just, is he a great GM? I don't know. It's definitely being questioned now. I wouldn't say he's a great one at this point, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of disastrous franchises out there with some guys making decisions that should not be. So that, it all depends who we'd bring in after him, like who his successor would be. And adding on real quick too, going back to the Bradbury thing, I would agree with you that I kind of had a similar stance. I kind of want to give him coming into this 3rd year, give him another chance, a better guard play around him. But yeah, it was just the same old crap today. So I'm starting to lose my hope there. And I think adding on to that, I think it's time to start grooming Wyatt Davis potentially as the next center. I think behind the scenes they should really start working him out doing that and see if he can play that. Because if he can, I think we should get him in there as soon as possible. Because if he's got a little bit more beef to him, so that would help as far as not getting forklifted, but and just get pushed right back into Kirk's lap. And obviously he's a rookie, so he's going to be making a cheap penny for a little while here. So I don't know. I think it's time to start exploring that too, especially if you think Ole Udoh can be serviceable for the long term, or at least for a little while. So
yeah, and he wasn't great today by any means, but it was also his first NFL game at guard, and he's got an anchor at least. Like he doesn't get pushed back. So like sometimes
he's a big dude.
Yeah, he gets beat with speed sometimes, and that's why he holds. But he's not going to just get forklifted back like Garrett Bradbury does. I mean, it's obvious that Bradbury is just too small to play in the NFL. And I agree with you. If they've and there's rumors that they have been grooming Wyatt Davis a little bit, giving him some reps at center. I don't think that's a horrible idea because if you think he can make that transition, I mean, that might be an option right there. And then you don't have to go worry about, who's our center going to be? Because realistically, 4 of the 5 spots on the offensive line could be settled for the future. I mean, I still have hope for Ezra Cleveland. He wasn't great today either, but I think it's just a product of the whole line being bad today. You're hoping Darrisaw is your left tackle for the foreseeable future. Brian O'Neill just got a huge extension, so he'll be around. I think Ole Udoh is going to have a spot on this line, as long as he doesn't, play horrible. So
exactly. I just like the fact that Ole Udoh is big and has some size. I feel like we've got a lot of undersized linemen in recent years, and that just hasn't worked. So I like going back to having these big offensive linemen that can at least hold their own, especially against lesser competition. So that's what I really want. And like you said, the more guys that we can have that are serviceable, it's just about eliminating the weak link. And if that's Bradbury, then let's get Davis ready to play center. But I think that was just evident again today, as of the last couple seasons, that it's just doesn't feel like it's working right now, and it feels like Kirk can't step up in the pocket more often than not. But sometimes I think it is on Kirk to just move around and make something happen outside the pocket, because it was just today I saw a tweet that he was like, if he's standing on his spot in the pocket, he's ranked number 7 for PFF as far as quarterback grades go. But if he's off his spot in the pocket, then he's ranked 34th. And there's only 32 teams in the league. So there's some teams that have 2 quarterbacks that are both better than him as far as throwing off his spot in the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, that's outrageous. I mean, but it's obvious. You can see it. The second that, like, his first read isn't there, or like, because they've clearly designed these plays for a certain guy to be the first option, which a lot of teams do. But it feels like when that first option isn't there, you can see him mentally freeze. And, like, he just sits there and he passes the ball and he passes the ball. And it's like, you got to get rid of that thing, because this offensive line is not good enough to hold up for more than 3 seconds. I mean, you can't hold the ball for 5 seconds. That's outrageous, especially when your center's undersized. You got inexperienced guard play. Rashad Hill is a backup, and that's what Sage says here as well. He's a backup at best, and I agree. He's not a starting left tackle, and that's the problem.
That's why we took Darius out in the first place.
Exactly. There's no depth, and you can maybe try to move Udo over to left tackle because he was a tackle, and maybe play Davis at right guard, but then you keep moving the chairs around on the offensive line, and that's just going to create even more of a mess. So it's like, the quicker Darisaw can get back, the better, but we don't even know how good he's going to be to start off, coming off an injury. So I don't know, man. It's concerning. One bright spot today, though, KJ Osborne did play very well, and I think he's going to be the wide receiver 3 at over D.D. Westbrook. That's the way it's looking to me, at least.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I really liked what I saw from Osborne today. I feel like it's the best wide receiver 3 performance I've probably seen since Jarius Wright back in 2017. Like, no joke. Yes. I don't think anybody's been like a stability in that position for a long time. So, or provided stability in that position. And I'm hoping Osborne is that answer, because that'd be really nice. That'd really help this offense, and especially stepping up when our tight end room is feeling a little thin, because obviously there's some uncertainty there. Rudy's out of the picture in New York now, and obviously Irv Smith's on the IR. So now we're down to the Gronklin plus Brandon Dillon, who hasn't had a lot of NFL snaps, and Chris Herndon, who literally just got into the offense via that trade from the Jets. So we're going to have to play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, which honestly doesn't really play to what our offense probably really wants to do. And so it's good that at least Osborne is filling that role nicely and contributing. And I like that. I thought Clint today, that's another bright spot I'd bring up with this, along with KJ Osborne, is just Clint Kubiak in general. I know it's a little bit hard to judge because of the penalties that really set back some drives and kind of threw things out of whack. But at the same time, I didn't see any like glaring issues with the play calling. I don't think that's really why we lost the game today. Obviously, I think you brought this up to me, Bailey, that it felt like we run the ball on first down every time. And that could definitely be changed. But I feel like that's not, like, for instance, in overtime, we ran the ball on first down every time, and then all of a sudden down fumble, and then it felt like that's the turning point of the game. That's how we end up losing in the end. But I won't say it was like a central point to why we lost. Like, there's a lot of other opportunities for us to win the game. But long story short, I'd just say Clint did a good job today calling play, especially his first game doing it. So I think he's going to get better and better every week, hopefully. So I was pretty impressed by that too. Yeah,
I agree. I think he did a better job than I was honestly expecting, particularly in the second half when we needed to be more aggressive, because we were behind by 14 points at one point. So I think he did a great job. There's going to be some growing pains. I'm sure there was some stuff between him and Kirk that were a little rough, at least at the start of the game. But overall, I was fairly pleased with that. And the tight ends that Conklin did a good job today. He obviously can play. I think he can be serviceable, and we're not going to have Irv Smith really for this whole season. But I think Herndon had one pass thrown his way, if I remember correctly, and it got broken up. I didn't see Brandon Dillon on the field, if I remember correctly, at all. So I think the tight end
a little bit, but I think it was just on run plays.
Okay, which would make sense. I don't think the tight ends are going to have a huge role in this offense, which is fine, honestly, because like you said, we should be going more towards the 3 wide receiver sets. Especially if KJ Osborne's a guy that you can stick in the slot, and he's going to find an open hole in the defense. I mean, that's exactly what Jarius Wright did. It almost looked like Jarius Wright, honestly, wearing number 17 and all, doing well. So I was pretty excited to see that, honestly. I thought another disappointing thing was Jefferson hardly had any targets today. I'm sure they were, double covering him, making sure that the ball went somewhere else. Thielen had a good game, but it was disappointing, I guess, to not see them try to get Jefferson the ball a little more, which was an issue last year as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, I don't know. I like seeing, like you said, the 3 wide receiver sets. Just it's so much more modern day offense than playing with all the two tight end sets that we usually like to play with. It's just I don't know. It's just going to be a learning process, I guess, because I think we've been in that kind of mindset for so long. So we've only basically gotten too deep at the wide receiver position for how long. So I think it'll just be a little adjustment. And I think Clint obviously is the younger mind, so hopefully that plays to our advantage, honestly, that he's a little bit more up to date, I guess, with today's schemes and how modern offenses run as far as just stretching the field a bit more, maybe going 3 deep. And I think I'm pretty excited to see how he evolves as a play caller. Hopefully it just gets better and better. I mean, obviously we saw the wide receiver pass today from Justin Jefferson, which
was awesome.
That surprised me a little bit, but I didn't see that coming. So I'm pretty excited about that, the creativity there. And it kind of makes me think too, whenever I watch a Cleveland Browns game, and you just wonder if Stefanski's the one that got away, because he called a great game today offensively for the Browns. So it's just, man, that kind of stings a little bit to see that he was in our organization for a decade and a half, and now he's turning the Browns into a very relevant team for the first time in years, because obviously made playoffs last year for the first time in I think nearly 20 years or whatever it was. So I think that's a bit worrisome for me, that it's like, man, are we just going to keep looking back on that when we let him go, to if we should have just made the transition to him at that point.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Clint as well, is that he might figure it out by the end of the season, but it might not matter, because if Zimmer gets canned, I'm sure Clint's not going to be around next year. Jackson mentions here Eric Bieniemy, who for some reason hasn't taken a job the last 2 off seasons. I'd be open to getting him, Kansas City's offensive coordinator. I mean, sign me up for that, unless there's a glaring reason why he's not a head coach in the NFL right now. Aaron Rodgers would also be fun for the Vikings, but I don't think he's going to be released next year. If anything, he's going to get traded, and they're not going to trade him to us. So we might have to hold off till 2023 for that, but which it could line up nicely as well, because maybe next year we have Kellen Mond and then like a bridge quarterback. And if neither of those guys look very impressive, then maybe you can somehow sway Aaron Rodgers to come here when he's a free agent in 2023. Obviously, that's a long shot, but it would be kind of interesting to see, I guess, try to finish what Favre started. But I feel like that's such a long shot that I feel like we should focus more on, maybe bring Bieniemy in, but then obviously he'd probably want like a Spencer Rattler type, a guy that can just launch the ball down the field, but is also mobile, athletic. I don't know. I mean, Rattler's going to be tough to get, but somebody like that. A name I keep wanting to keep an eye on is Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. He was projecting to be like a 2nd or 3rd round QB last year. He came back to school this year, and I think he's got an impressive arm. He's very athletic as well. There's Sam Howell from North Carolina. He didn't look very good week 1. How did he do this weekend? Did you see how he played this weekend?
Yeah, I didn't catch that North Carolina game this past weekend. Yeah, because I watched actually quite a bit of that game they played at Virginia Tech. And that looked a little rough, but at the same time, I'm not sure if that was more about him basically losing everybody around him from last year, because obviously they had Javonte Williams, Michael Carter both got drafted, and then Daz Newsome and what was the other guy? Forgetting his name.
Seahawks receiver, I want to say, speedy guy.
No, he's a speedy guy, but not the Seahawks. I want to say maybe it was what was his name? Yeah. Anyways, he lost his top 2 receivers from last year and his top 2 running backs. I'm not sure if that was more just an adjustment process, first time playing with all these NFL players around him. So maybe this is the real him. I don't know, but we'll have to tell as the North Carolina season goes on to see if he's an option for us. And I know it's really hard to tell how truly high these quarterbacks will go or not, because obviously I'm sure there'll be at least one that emerges as like a top pick potential, and then there'll be a bunch of others that you're just not quite sure about, because usually it's not going to happen like last year where the top 3 picks are all quarterbacks. But I never know. But some guys usually emerge in the college season. Just you got to see who. You got to wait quite some time to see who's really standing above the rest. So I like the idea here, though, of just exploring a first-round quarterback. If you don't like Mond and up behind the scenes, I personally am still high on Mond. I still think he could end up being the guy. It's just, I don't know, he is also a third-round pick, so you got to temper expectations a little bit for what he can turn into. So at this point, regardless of how the season ends, there aren't a lot of results that end up in Kirk being back here in 2022. So I think the earlier the better you start planning for it, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the Monda thing is really going to depend on what Eric, we say Eric Bieniemy in this case, but whoever the next coach is, hopefully an offensive coach that they bring in, what he thinks of Kellen Mond, or if he's going to want to draft his own guy. Because honestly, we'll still have enough talent on both sides of the ball where I'd be completely open to whoever comes in, has an offensive-minded approach, and just goes all in on the offense and goes and gets that quarterback. I don't care what it takes. Just go get him. I don't care what the rest of the draft looks like. Go get your guy. You still got Jefferson. You still got Thielen. You still got Cook. Defensive side of the ball, you still got Kendricks, Smith, Danielle Hunter. Hopefully you'll re-sign. Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson will be under contract. Anthony Barr I don't think will be back, so you'll probably need a linebacker as well. But yeah, I mean, there's still going to be talent. So if you can fix the quarterback position and also lower the cap hit of the quarterback position, then you can go sign free agent offensive linemen, free agent linebackers, free agent corners. You'll probably have to sign again because they're all on 1-year deals. So that's going to be the important part is that, okay, yeah, the guy you're getting might not be better than Kirk Cousins right away, but lowering that cap hit and also having the potential of that guy being your next franchise quarterback is so worth it when it comes to having to rebuild your roster after what's probably going to be a not so very good season this year. So what are your thoughts on just kind of, if Zimmer's gone, just starting to go all in on the offense, but you still keep some of that talent on your defense as well?
Yeah, I kind of like the way you laid out that plan. I think it's more aligned with all the successful teams these days, such as, Kansas City's always going to be the one you want to strive to be just because their offensive firepower is just unmatched. And they won a ton of games and they've been to back-to-back Super Bowls now. And who's to say they're not going to go to 3 in a row this year? But I think, just closely aligns with success these days where obviously you can't have a liability of a defense out there. Otherwise, you're not going to go anywhere. You have to have at least a decent one. But like you said, if we're keeping some of these good defensive players in place and bringing more of an offensive focus in with a new coach, then maybe that's what we've been looking for all along. I don't know. But I think I just like the idea of starting more towards, like you said, lowering that cap hit on the quarterback so we can do other things in this roster because clearly – I mean, Zimmer's brought up in his press conferences where it's like, since we're so top heavy with the finances, he said, then we can't do as much with our depth. So if we had a cheaper quarterback, then that might open a lot more options for you towards basically filling out the roster a little bit better. So then when you do have injuries, you do have things come up, then you can basically withstand them and overcome that. Where like right now, I don't know if we can overcome a whole lot, especially when we came out today and we lost the game and we basically had everybody out there except for obviously the big missing piece of that reserve. But
I mean, it's just we're in such a tough spot, man. I mean, the Vikings do what a lot of teams shouldn't do, and there's some teams that do it, and the Vikings are kind of caught in this trap right now. You have to know when to cut bait, when it's time to kind of start over, and they keep trying to kick the can down the road with like the way they structure these contracts and everything, and it's all set up to come and bite you in the end, and it's kind of biting us right now because the depth isn't great. Kirk Cousins is making a ton of money. He's going to make even more next year if you don't get rid of him. It's just now they're going to have to re-sign Danielle Hunter in the offseason. It's just they're just in a bad spot right now, and the team's not producing is the problem. That's the ultimate problem is that this team hasn't shown that they're capable of being a 11, 12-win team, go win the division, go win a playoff game or two. Like, they're not even capable of that. So it's like none of this is worth it, honestly. All this contract structuring they're doing, it's not worth it because what's going to end up happening is it's going to end up eating into the future regime and what they're trying to do. So granted, I know they're just trying to do what's best for them right now. But that's also the problem is it's kind of the job of the GM to think about the future as well. So it's like, sometimes you want to draft for immediate need, but you got to think about the future as well. And if you don't have a succession plan at quarterback when clearly the current guy you have isn't working out, that's a major problem.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. I think that's definitely on the GM. Like you said, it's not really on the head coach or the current team to really worry about the future. It's worried about right now. But sort of GM, he's got to make more strategic moves towards competing not only in 2021 but beyond. So that's kind of goes back to this past draft, and we could have made a move to get Justin Fields in here, and then that would have set us up for a long time potentially. Yes. But we were more worried about winning in 2021, so then we made the pick with Darisaw, and now Darisaw is not even helping us right now. So obviously you got to play the long game. I mean, these guys haven't even played any games yet. That Fields probably won't even play tonight against the Rams, and obviously Darisaw, he's not going to be playing for a little while. And who knows, maybe Darisaw will turn into some all-pro left tackle, and that's obviously the ideal scenario here. But if you get a guy that really plugs a hole at left tackle for 10 years or something, then that's pretty hard to trade that for something else. So it depends on Darisaw and the way he actually ends up turning out. But obviously it does on Fields too, because obviously you trade almost anything to get a marquee quarterback if Fields turns into that.
Right. Sage asks, did Cam Dantzler even play today? No, he did not. Yep. He was inactive, and this is another issue I have is Zimmer and his hubris. He thinks I don't know. He wasn't happy with Dantzler's training camp and preseason. That's understandable. He didn't look good in the preseason games. I'll fully admit that. Mm-hmm. However, he's a third-round pick from a year ago. He started like 10 of your games last season, and you're just going to make him inactive? And then so Bashaud Breeland gets hurt on the long bomb Jamar Chase catches before the half, and Breeland's like nursing a shoulder injury. He's kind of limping around, whatever he's doing. His head's not in the game. You can clearly tell. So then what do? They bring in Chris Boyd, who I like Chris Boyd. He's got some swag. He's not a cover corner, though. He can't cover. So it's like, why is Chris Boyd getting in over a guy like Cam Dantzler? It's like Cam Dantzler's a third-round pick, and he's inactive on game day. This guy should be playing. If a guy gets hurt, he should be the next guy in. He should be getting reps. He should be developing. And if he's not developing, what's the issue, Mike? You're the cornerback guru. So it's like, Zimmer's got no excuses left, honestly, for me. I mean, Cam Dantzler had all the potential in the world last season, it appeared. And now, he's nothing. He's your sixth corner, and he's going to sit on the bench. I mean, give me a break. That's pathetic.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. This is very concerning because, honestly, I felt really good about where Dantzler was at ending last season because his last – 6-8 games, he was pretty highly regarded among PFF grades and corners in the whole league. So I felt pretty good about where he was at and how he was coming into the season. But yeah, the preseason training camp, all that was just bad. And I think Zimmer has a right to be kind of frustrated with that because he should just naturally evolve, but I guess he just hasn't. But like you said, I don't know if Zimmer should have just made him straight up inactive today. I don't know if that was really the move either. And like you said, when Breeland got exposed a couple times, that's not great, so it means, but hopefully Dantzler's still – we're kind of counting on him to be a piece of the future still because, like you said, all these at least 1 year season. So I'm a little bit worried about his development there. And if he doesn't turn, then that draft class last year was rougher.
Yeah, it's not a good look for Spielman. It's not a good look for Zimmer. Must have a Bengals fan in the comment here. Joey B. I got to give Joey B credit. He played pretty dang well today. I mean, they kind of had the training wheels on in the first half. Then it looked like his knee got banged up a little bit. But I thought Joey B played pretty well today. What do you think?
Shoot.
Are we breaking up?
A little bit of technical difficulties there. Yeah,
you're glitching a little for me here as well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry. Yeah, my apologies. Okay. But can you hear me now?
No, you're good. Yeah. Okay, so cool.
I was going to say.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to add real quick. Joey B comment there. I liked how he looked today. Obviously, a little bit early on, he's a little flustered, but naturally so, coming back from an injury, and. I think as the game went on, he got more comfortable, especially after they scored that first touchdown when they got that big pass interference penalty that set him up there at the 3-yard line. They got into Higgins there, and then he was off and rolling. I think he looked like the Joe Burrow from the end of his his playing time last year, and I think he's going to turn into a pretty good quarterback in this league, and I'm pretty excited for him. It's just came at the expense of the Vikings today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's just one of those guys that you would just love to have. He's got the swagger. He's got the moxie. He's got the confidence. He steps into his throws and just delivers them precisely. He puts it in a good spot for his receivers to go get it. He doesn't hang them out to dry. I think he's going to be fantastic. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a great quarterback, and I think Cincinnati's in a good spot. Their defense honestly impressed me a little today too. They were extremely aggressive. They were ready to play. That's the other thing too. It simply looked like Cincinnati was just way more excited and hyped up for this game than we were. And
True.
Granted, it's a home game for them. It's first game with fans back in the stands, stuff like that. But I don't know, man. There's not a good vibe around this Vikings team right now, and I don't know. I don't know if there's a whole lot they can do to fix it in a hurry here.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think, it's really hard to evaluate at this point after a game. But at the same time, like you said, just surely not thinking about it too hard, just looking at pure energy and what you thought both of these teams came into it with. I think the Bengals definitely came into it with more hype. And I think another thing that also plays into it too, speaking of Joey B, is just leadership from your quarterback and somebody really taking charge in the huddles and really getting guys fired up. I think Burrow does a great job of that. I think everybody gravitates towards him. And saw it on Twitter during the Vikings game today. It's like, where's the leadership of this team? Is anybody going to step up and really get these guys in the right headspace to basically make a comeback in this game? And eventually they did. But I don't know. I'd like to see a little bit more leadership, at least visible leadership. Maybe it happens a little bit more quietly behind the scenes, but I'd definitely like to see it a little bit more outwardly.
Jim's throwing shots at you.
Yeah, Jim's right. I was pretty down with the Vikings loss, and I couldn't handle myself. But
just devastating.
Yes, absolutely.
Sage also asks, is Greg Joseph the real deal? I mean, I don't know. He looked pretty good today, but I don't know if I can fully trust him yet. But that 53-yard field goal he hit was fantastic. And also the punter, Barry, today was great as well. So I thought special teams was actually probably the best part of our day.
That's incredible for how bad it's been these last couple of years. Really, Joseph and Barry to come up huge like they did. I think that's a silver lining from this game. And I think I really I would have bet all my money on Joseph missing that 53-yarder, especially when he made the kick when they called the timeout. I was like, oh, there's no way he makes this back-to-back. But his second kick was even better. It was like right down Broadway, plenty of room to spare. There was no doubt about it, and he sent us to overtime and gave us a chance. That's really all you can ask for from your kicker. So I got to give him credit. I thought that would have been like, man, it felt like the stars aligning for one of those Vikings kicker woes where we get to the end of the game, we can force overtime, we just miss the kick, because that just feels like that's what would happen. But hats off to him. Yeah, I did not think he was making that. So that's pretty gives me a little hope as far as having Joseph in here to be our kicker this season. I was very, very down on him coming into the year. I thought he'd definitely be a liability of this team, but
yeah, I did too. I did too, especially considering that they brought in competition for the kicking competition during training camp. I just thought that they weren't very impressed with him, but clearly he won out. I had heard through the week that he had a big leg, and I was kind of questioning that. I was like, well, from what I've seen
in the preseason.
Yeah, in the preseason, he was like almost short on a 50-yard field goal or something, or he was short. I don't remember, but he looked fantastic today. So that was very encouraging. Kind of our last topic here, maybe before we head out. Clearly there's some sort of rift between Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins. I think the report coming out at halftime today they said, what was Zimmer's biggest issue with the team? And he basically said, Kirk's holding onto the ball too long, causing some of these sacks and penalties and stuff. And it's like, he might be right. Like Kirk does hold the ball too long, but I don't know, man. Like, you can't throw your quarterback under the bus like that at halftime of a game. Like, maybe do it after the game or something where you have a chance to talk about it, after the fact. But like, clearly there's something going on there between those two. I think Zimmer's frustration is that Kirk's contract is preventing them from going out and signing bigger name guys. And the fact that, Kirk just hasn't played well enough to get this team to where it should be. So obviously those two aren't liking each other too much. I know they watched film together the other day, which does nothing. I mean, it's phony. It's as phony as it gets. But what's your opinion about the head coach and quarterback not getting along? Because I just think that kind of sets the tone for the whole team to just kind of spiral downward, honestly.
I think that's fair to point out. I think there has to be a strong connection there because, like you said, that's usually where leadership comes from on most teams. And if there's a disconnect there between Zimmer and Cousins, then that's a huge concern because you can only get so far without good leadership in place. And if these guys are on different pages, then boy, that's a pretty tough thing to overcome as a team. So I think whatever their issues are, I feel like they got to get sorted out. Although, depending on the quarterback, I don't think Kirk falls in this category, so I don't know if Zim should be making comments like this. But I think with some quarterbacks, it might actually help them as far as like publicly challenging them like that. But I just don't think Kirk's that guy. So I think probably a different approach could be taken. But I mean, maybe Zim has been like that, taking that approach where he's not kind of coming after Kirk or calling him out too often until basically this year, because I don't recall him really going after Kirk like this in years past. So maybe he's at the point where he's just lost all patience. He's like, I'm done with this, like we are, where it's like, just make it happen or don't. Like, let's finally have a season where we play more than mediocre 500 football. So I can kind of get Zim's frustration, but then again, I kind of wish that that halftime interview would have been live on TV.
Yeah, that would have been entertaining. Holy smokes. But yeah, there's a clear disconnect there, and it's just it sets the table for having a dysfunctional season when 2/3 of your whatever you want to call them, 2/3 of your brain trust or whatever the magic word is you want to use, don't get along. And I kind of question if Zimmer and Spielman really get along either, because I think Zimmer's been kind of taking shots at Spielman as well about how we don't have depth on this team and stuff like that. But it's like, Spielman's drafting the guys, you got to develop them as well. So I think it works both ways there. But Sage points out here the Titans got shut down by the Cardinals, and yeah, that's kind of what we talked about earlier. I mean, the Cardinals looked very good today. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks. He's going to be going against Rashad Hill probably. So, I mean, it's going to be a nightmare, I think, next weekend. And that high-flying offense, they're going to have way too much speed for us, I think.
Yeah, I think they might. I think that's going to be a pretty tall task to go into Arizona and win that game. But we got to bounce back. We can't start 0-2 because, like I said at the top of this, percentages don't favor teams that start 0-2 to make the playoffs. So I think it's pretty important that we win next week. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty tough one. Like you said, they got a lot of talent across the board, whether it's offensively or defensively. They got a lot of playmakers. So we're going to have to come in ready to play, and not like today. If we play again next week like we did today, we'll lose by even more. So I think this is on Zim and the coaching staff to get these guys ready to play next week and play a lot cleaner football. Otherwise, it's could be the start of a long season. But I'd also like to point out too before we wrap here, I think it's nice to see as far as pointing out things that went good. I know we've been kind of doom and gloom for a lot of the stream, but at the same time to point out like the positives. I like seeing Mike Pierce. Oh my gosh, dude looks like a beast on the inside. And getting 2 sacks when he came into the Vikings with I think 3 career sacks. I think that was it. And for him to have 2 big ones today, I mean, he just manhandled that Trey Hopkins for the Bengals. And then also going offensively, I think Adam Thielen looks like he hasn't lost his step, which is good. I know he's getting up in their age, but he's still doing his thing. So I mean that's huge too. We had another couple touchdown catches, picking up where he left off last year. So that's pretty cool. But that's probably where I'd start with as far as highlights. Oh, and I'd add one last one too with Pat P. I feel like they did not throw the ball at him today. So I think he must have been doing pretty good in coverage. So.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think another couple positives as well. It took Daniel Hunter a little while to arrive to the party, but he finally got a sack. So it was good to see him come back healthy, get a sack. He also broke through a couple times and almost got there from what I remember. As well as Nick Vigil. He had a good game replacing Anthony Barr, I thought, which was a very pleasant surprise considering that we didn't think much of him. He was just a very cheap free agent signing. But yeah, he had a good game today against his former team as well. So I thought that was encouraging. We'll end with this question from Jim here. The Vikings game was a bad loss, but what team should be most concerned after their week 1 performance?
It's a great question, Jimmy. Let's think about this. I mean, the Packers potentially, just because they weren't in the game at all against the Saints today, and with all the tension they had in the offseason with Rodgers and and Adams coming out last week and saying, nope, we're nowhere on extension talks. That will not happen. I think there's definitely a divide here in this organization. I feel like that could be something that totally wrecks their season. So if I'm the Packers, I'd probably take a look in the mirror and be a little bit worried about what happened today. I know the Saints obviously are a pretty good team. They have a pretty solid roster. Jameis Winston, I think the jury's still out if he's going to be a true franchise quarterback for them going forward. But they just got manhandled today, and against a team that was playing in some weird circumstances, playing away from their home field, going up to Jacksonville of all places.
It wasn't even a true road game.
Yeah, exactly, and they just got taken to the woodshed. So if I'm the Packers, I'd be a little bit worried about that. And off the top of my head, I guess I can't think of anybody else that was too wow, they just look bad. Like teams that should look good but that were bad today. But
yeah, I'm gonna go with the Tennessee Titans. Obviously they played the Cardinals, which was a great team, but they got absolutely blown out. And people are talking about Tennessee as a potential Super Bowl contender. I just don't see it today. I don't see it with Ryan Tannehill. I just don't see it. I think he had his one great season a couple of years ago when they made that run to the AFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. I'm not a big believer in Tannehill. I think their defense leaves something to be desired. And yeah, Derrick Henry's a good player. They got some good receivers with Julio and AJ Brown, but you got to get him the ball. And clearly they couldn't stop Arizona today, and that's my worry about next week as well with the Vikings. But yeah, I'm going to say the Titans should be concerned as well. Jacksonville also getting blown out by Houston, who's supposed to be the team tanking for the number one pick this year.
Sure, but what were you saying?
I was going to say that happened last year as well. I think Jacksonville was supposed to be the team that tanks, and they come out and win week one. So I know week one is weird, but not an encouraging sign from Jacksonville today.
No, but at least for them, it's literally anything could happen this year, and it'd be okay for basically everybody that's in place right now, from Urban Meyer to Trevor Lawrence, whatever. This is just a growing year. So, getting blown out today isn't really the end of the world because they're just kind of figuring things out. And rookie coach, rookie quarterback, it just kind of is what it is. Like you said, Texans are obviously – they're not going to be a good team this year, and they got blown out. But at the same time, I don't think it's anything to be too worried about if you're Jacksonville, because I don't think you probably had playoff aspirations coming into the season anyway. So,
right, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Buffalo lost to Pittsburgh today, which was kind of a shock as well. But that Pittsburgh defense is freaking good, man. I don't know. I think that Pittsburgh game could be tough for us too. So we'll leave it with this. Jim says everyone could be 0-1 in the NFC North after this week, which is absolutely correct. I think the Bears will probably lose to the Rams tonight. So yeah, if everyone's 0-1, that's kind of interesting. But
it's got to be better than the three teams in our division. Then you win a division, then you got at least one home playoff game.
That is true. I don't know. I get this feeling Green Bay is going to turn it around. And I think Chicago could be around a 500 team this year as well. So the Vikings have some work to do. They're by no means done. But if they look bad these next couple weeks, it's going to be time to sound the panic alarm. And Mike Zimmer's going to have to be looking for a new job here pretty quick, I think. So, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. This was super fun doing a live stream, obviously, with these post-game shows. We're going to try and do this every week, go live. We'll post comments up on the screen like we did today. Maybe eventually we can work some people in as well, talk about the game with them as well. We'll keep our ticker going on the bottom as well as some of the stats. I kind of enjoy that feature of doing this as well. But, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do so and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. We've appreciated all the support we've gotten so far as we continue to try and grow this channel and this podcast. We enjoy talking Minnesota sports, so we're gonna keep giving it the best we got, I guess. But until next time, thanks for watching, and Skol Vikings.